Hello, everyone. Welcome to Community Extra. I am Nisa Wilkins. Thanks for joining us tonight. In our studio today, I have one of my favorite people who works at Channel 7, Austin Maida. He is an MMJ here, multimedia journalist. And if you see him out and about, you have probably noticed some hardware. Hi, Austin.
How are you?
Good. How are you?
Good. Thanks for having me.
Well, if you've seen Austin out and about in the community, or if you've seen him on the news, on the news each night, you may have noticed he has some extra hardware in his head. Yes, and I'm just curious as to how this all began. Were you born with a hearing impairment?
No, and thanks for asking. I always love whenever people do ask me about my story. Sometimes people walk up to me that don't know me, whether they see me out in the public, like you said, or just throughout my daily life, even before working here. People will ask me, specifically children definitely ask all the time, because it looks like some sort of spaceman apparatus or something. But what it is, it's a cochlear implant, and just to go ahead and start, it's the processing piece of it just comes right off. It's magnetic. It's all built into right here, and I can go more into that here in a second. But to answer your question specifically about the history for me personally, is that I was 25-ish. It's probably 26, 27. It was probably about 5 years ago, and just had my first ever ear infection. And randomly, after taking the antibiotics and such to clear that infection out, about 2 weeks later, I woke up and I couldn't hear anything out of my one ear, my left ear. Went through the routes I knew to go through medically, talked to a doctor. They sent me to an ENT. The ENT then running tests kind of figured out, they're trying. First they ask you questions such as, what's your background? Are you military? Are you construction? Are you in a band? Something that would be a reason for that type of hearing loss. And those answers were all no. So start doing some other testing on it, and ended up being complete deafness in my left ear. And They sent me, instead of to an ENT, then to a specific hearing and balance doctor, one of the better ones in the South, who's been practicing in my hometown of Jacksonville for a long, long time, and done many, many surgeries. Went through a process to kind of clear with insurance to see, to basically prove that I was a candidate for what is called a cochlear implant. And I can get into more about what that is if you'd like.
Absolutely. I just want to know if it took you a while to get used to wearing that or used to having a hearing loss.
Yeah, it was a strange year, right? The first part of it, when it first happened, because it was a unique case. Being my age, a lot of people, whenever they have profound hearing loss or total hearing loss, like I do in one ear, it happens at a young age, meaning there's something they're born with, or...
Well, you're still young.
Well, yes. I mean a very, very young age, infancy. Or it's somebody that just has degenerative hearing loss or physical hearing loss from the things they've done in life, and they wanting to have a fix for that later in life. But for me, being in my 20s, in order to clear it with insurance, I basically had to prove to the insurance guys that I was actually deaf. And that sounds silly, but the way it works is they wanted to make sure that a regular hearing aid wouldn't be the fix. And if anybody has a hearing aid or they know about it, hearing aids amplify what is already there, but you can't amplify zero, right? You can't amplify or turn something up that's not there. So I was a candidate for cochlear implants, and about a year after I went deaf, I had the surgery. And I'm a fairly confident person in general, so none of the aesthetic stuff visually was upsetting for me. Nothing like that. Not that big of a deal to me, but getting used to it definitely was. And I can get into that. Basically what happens is they teach you therapy. Once it's turned on, which the surgery was its own thing. The surgery had about a month-long recovery because your equilibrium's thrown off, your balance is thrown off. They basically go into your ear right here, and they pull it back, and they put in an implant, put you back together, And about a month after the surgery, they turn it on, and it works with the processor. The processor hooks right, or not hooks. The processor is magnetic, and it magnetizes right onto the implant. And the way that it works, again, I'm no doctor, I'm no scientist, but the way it works is that the processor receives the sound, and it sends the sound electrically to the adapter, to the implants on the inside of my head, which then sends, however it does, again, no doctor here, sends the specific frequencies to your brain. And it's an electric robotic type hearing. It's definitely not natural.
Oh, so cool.
Yeah, it's definitely not natural. It is a electric robotic type hearing. The way I describe it to people is, if you've ever been to, say, Cracker Barrel, or just a toy store, and there's those toy megaphones. I don't know if you've seen it. Maybe your grandson Maverick has one.
Yeah.
But there's these toy megaphones that you basically speak into. There you go.
Just
you
kidding.
have one. Yeah. And it makes your voice sound kind of like a robot. And that is basically what it is. But for single-sided deaf patients like myself, your brain is amazing. And my brain basically combines natural hearing, which, thank God my ear that works is fantastic. It's 100%. It combines that natural hearing with the electric robotic hearing, and it melds those two things together. And your brain just kind of does the work. The first few months were rough because I wanted to rip it off my head and throw it at the wall for a while. But just like riding a bike, you kind of, you learn it as you go, and the sound kind of got cleared up and cleaned up relatively quickly. And within a few months of the processor being turned on, I reached what my doctors felt like was the high point, a plateau, and it's stayed that way for the 5 years since then. So,
now, if there's someone who's really annoying you, or is very loud, or is a chatterbox, can you take that out and just ignore them?
You know what? It's funny. Yes, being the answer. And it's funny you asked that, Nisa, because there's a couple things in life that it's a silver lining, as they might say, and I would say sleeping. It's dangerous.
Yes. Didn't think about that.
It's dangerous from the standpoint of
sirens or something.
Yeah, exactly. Maybe not being able to hear. That's why. I mean, I want to be a father someday. I don't have any kids yet. Mothers and fathers that have this, that want to hear like their children coming into the room, or their children, if their children is wanting to. They have things that can basically hold the adapter onto your head, basically like wearing a headband if you want to sleep in it. But the one funny benefit I've always gotten is that I always book the same. I'm flying on Friday to go up to North Carolina, and I always book a seat that is next to the right side of the airplane so that I can sleep. I take off my processor, I put it in my pocket, I'm up against the thing, and if my good ear is covered and this processor isn't on, I can't hear a thing. And so it gets me good sleep on an airplane. That's a plus.
So did you ever go through any kind of depression after it happened?
No. And I would
That's awesome.
Personally, like I said, the way I feel about myself and the way I try to look at life as the things that go well for you, and not dwell on the stuff that isn't going well for you. And by that, I would just give all credit to, and I'm not just trying to be sappy or anything, like I was raised by great people, not only my parents, but also my extended family around me, older men and women in my life. And I'm grounded from the sense that I've been able to see that there are a lot worse things in life than losing one ear. You can lose a leg, you can lose an eye, you can lose a friend, you can lose all kinds of stuff. But I kind of tackled this head on from the very beginning, and knowing that I was going to be all right, and that there are a lot worse things in life. And I wanted to basically try to tackle it head on and go straight into it, dive straight into it. So I kind of did not allow myself to really get to the point of, sure, do I wish that things might be different? Do I wish that I had natural hearing? Well, of course. But I also do know that I'm blessed that there's this type of workaround, that there's this type of technology that is so advanced now, because this is a 50, 60, 70-year technology that is just coming, that is excuse me for speaking out of turn here, it's pretty much perfected. This has been a different steps of this technology throughout the years have made it to this point where it is now. Like I said, it's such a seamless thing for me. And again, also lucky that that I'm my age, meaning this is happening to me in the 2020s decade as opposed to the 1970s or 80s, because like with anything, medicine is so far advanced. So anyway, long answer to say that I feel fortunate for the other factors in my life, and I didn't really just allow myself to get too upset over this. I kind of just went straight into it.
Well, it has been a blessing in many, many lives. You being an MMJ, basically a reporter here, but you do so many other things, like put things on web, you do digital, you do so much. How has that hindered, or has it been a problem at all?
No, which has
That's
been
awesome.
great. And to be totally honest, there might become you might know a little thing or two about anchoring, Miss Nisa, but the only time that it has affected me at work is wearing an IFB, as we call them, for everybody watching
Correct,
this.
yeah.
Everybody, we have a piece that goes into our ears. In my instance, the only good ear, real ear that I have going here. That is our director and our producer and the people behind the scenes that do a great job. It's them talking to us as the show is going on. So the only time it has been a negative for me is when I've filled into Anchor a few times, and it's hard for me to use the IFB with things constantly playing into this ear, because the way that this is supposed to work is that this is specifically for single-sided deaf, and it is relying on you being able to hear everything
Right.
else that's going on out here. So this single-sided one is developed and produced to work with the natural hearing. So if there's something always going into your one ear, then it is a little bit rough. But when it comes to doing stuff out in the field, when it comes to interviewing the many people here in the Panhandle that I've been blessed to be able to interview and talk to about their life, it has not affected me. It's been pretty seamless, and I feel very lucky in that regard that it is only single-sided. Again, goes back to the trying to have a good outlook of things.
Yeah.
I could have lost both my ears, but I only lost one, and so there's some workarounds.
Is there any words, or do you have any words of encouragement for someone who may be having to go through the same thing?
Yes. Specifically, first, I would speak to parents of young people, because, like I said, more times than not, this is something that happens. Candidates for this type of surgery are children, young children that were born deaf or were born severely hard of hearing. And before you go into surgery, you have to sign a sheet of paper that says, I recognize that I will never hear anything naturally out of this one ear again. For me personally, that wasn't much of a decision to have to sign off on, because all my tests were at 0% for this ear. But there are parents, and I totally understand this, when you're making a decision for your child that is such a young age, and that it's scary. I understand that it's scary, but my words of encouragement would be, talk to your audiologist, talk to a surgeon, talk to someone that specifically works in the hearing and balance field, and they will be able to tell you how great this technology is and how safe and accurate and streamlined it is. Like I said, this has been a decades-long process since they first started doing cochlears, and it is so refined and successful now that there are very, very, from what I've been told and from what I've researched, very, very, very few cases of anything ever happening negatively with this. I've basically been almost guaranteed. They've told me 99.99% chance that the stuff that's on the inside of my head, that implant, will never have to be touched again.
Oh,
like, it's
wonderful.
really good technology. Now, these things are always changing. This processor it's called the called the Canso 2, and it's the second of the totally off the ear processors. And if you've seen somebody around before, there's other processors that go over the ear and have a little
Right.
cord that comes up. I have one of those as well. I wear this one around just because it makes me feel more, it's less on the ear. But these things are always changing. And this technology is changing, but the stuff that major surgery you go through, that is almost certainly guaranteed to never have to be changed. And my encouragement would be for parents, just to reach out to your audiologist and to your hearing surgeon so that they can assure you, help you feel confident in the decision that you're making for your child. And the other thing I would say is, if you feel like, if you're an adult that is having this severe loss, if you feel like there's something maybe going on with your ears, don't overlook it. Go see what you can be done, because if it's not 100% hearing loss, they can try to maybe save it before it gets to that point, is the way it's been described to me. So don't take anything with your ears for granted. Go get it checked out as soon as you feel like there might be something going on.
You're such a fun person to be around.
Oh, stop
anyway,
it.
so positive. We thank you so much for being with us today, Austin,
Thanks
and
for having
sharing
me.
your story.
Of course, anytime.
Very encouraging. And thank you for being with us, and we will see you again next week. Have a great night.